we're in a tough spot. Remember our little sort of checkbox here of how things work fundamentally. Remember, the currency moves in anticipation of interest rates. Okay? They don't necessarily move on interest rates. They move in anticipation of interest rates. Okay, and nowadays we have anticipation of QE and interest rates. All right, so we'll do an interest rate column, and we will do a QE column. And we'll do the US. We'll do the pound. We'll do the euro. We'll do the Aussie, and we'll do the yen. Okay. Aussie has been dropping over the last 48 hours because people are expecting a rate cut tomorrow or next week. So anticipation here is these guys are cutting interest rates. And you've got to remember, guys, is that still the we'll take a peek at the euro too, absolutely. I'm going to try to cover it all here. All right. The world still works like this. I know we're in a global economy, but in the 8 years that I've been doing this, I've noticed this cycle still absolutely in play. Goes like this. Asia. Okay. It's that little recycling thing, that graphic you've seen. So in the US, we go through our little bubbles. The bubble bursts. We slash interest rates. We cry. We jump up and down. The Fed comes in and supports the economy unceremoniously. The economy steadies out. They start jumping up and down about raising interest rates, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, what happens in the US generally will happen sort of 6 months later in the UK, which will happen 3 to 5 months later in Europe, which will happen sort of 3 to 5 months later in Asia. And so this little cycle, yes, there's going to be sort of murmurings in between, but this cycle is absolutely still in play. In other words, what happens in the US then will happen in the UK, Europe, then will happen in Asia. So, well, Australia would be part of Asia in this example. So, my point being is that as currency traders, it's our job fundamentally to figure out which part of the cycle we're in, hypothetically. All right, because if we can do that, you now have basically determined the prevailing trend for the next 18 months. You know, because even though the UK might be lagging the US by 6 months, this, you know, if you're buying dollars, in other words, pound dollar down, you know, it might go down initially and then kind of just trickle after that as it washes itself out of the market, because these trends take months and months and months. Fundamental trends, guys, are one of those things that I struggle myself with, just the time horizon of these things. We're talking about months, big wheels. Big wheels. They don't turn very quickly. Although we might get you know, flashes of changing opinion, the actual reality of it takes a very long time to materialize. And we've seen that in the anticipation of US interest rate hikes. We've been talking about US rate hikes since like last year's summer. Or winter if you're in the southern hemisphere. I mean, like a year now, they've been, oh, things are, you know, we'll have to raise rates. Not happening. Zero wage inflation, not happening. It might take them up a token gesture, but in reality it hasn't. So I guess what I'm saying is the QE cycle's finished, but that interest rate cycle is yet to begin. And it's going to be very, very slow. Anyway, moving forward. So where are we here? interest rates in the US, the anticipation is a little bump up. The reality of it is that it's fairly flat. So we'll put flat to moderately up. QE, done. So we'll put an X here. Pound, interest rates not going anywhere. QE, in play, not really tapering, but not, there's no noise of them adding necessarily. Okay. Interest rates here in Europe at the lows, QE all aboard the night train. Okay. Aussie dollar, interest rates cutting supposedly, and QE not in play yet. So arguably they're actually pre this cycle. Although the Aussie is a little bit different to me because I don't think we're going to do unconventional things that way. Anyway, and then the yen, interest rates through the floor and printing money hard. So, according to this, really, what do we want to be trading? Probably not these guys. Euro yen is going to be a little messy fundamentally. On a day-to-day basis, why not? Sure, no problems. Probably want to be looking over here, and obviously euro dollar, and we've been concentrating on those things effectively. Now, the stock market is interesting. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about while it's on the top of my head is we've been getting little bits, I don't know if you've noticed, little bits of better European data. And when I say better, it's the patient is missing 2 legs, an arm, an ear, and, somebody's poked their eyes out as well. And now all of a sudden, they've replaced their eyes, but they're still missing an arm, a leg, and an elbow, and an ear. So, yes, there's better data, like CPI came out year over year, I think, 0.5 or 0.6 versus 0.5 or something, and they called it, the recovery is happening. I mean, we're talking about very subtle, very, very subtle, almost allowing, it's almost so subtle it's a rounding error. But then we saw slightly better French news, and we saw slightly better German employment data today. It's just these subtle little upticks in the European data. Is it enough to change opinion? Absolutely not. But it's just interesting to me that there's a little bit of an uptick. And that's something to keep an eye on, certainly. Is it a consequence of Draghi printing money? No. There hasn't been enough time for any of that to really spill through to the economy. But the US saw a nice recovery. The euro has been very weak for very long. It's possible that they're just organically seeing a little bit of a recovery because of the knock-on effect of this, of this stuff. Okay. The other thing to think about as well is, guys, staunch dollar strength is as good as, if not better than, a rate hike. It makes American goods very expensive. Try coming to the US on a holiday. One, the guy at passport control is the most unwelcoming human ever to grace the face of the earth. And 2, your euro / pound / Australian dollar goes nowhere. / South African rand. Very expensive on a tourist basis, very expensive to import American goods right now.